It's a very warm welcome today to the Global Sports Channel to Mr. Geoff Palmer. Geoff, how are you today?
Good, and thank you for having me, Mark. Pleasure talking with you.
Wonderful to have you on the show today. And why don't we start off by telling our global audience exactly where in the world you are talking to us from?
Sunny Pompano Beach. Actually, a little rainy right now, but beautiful Pompano Beach, Florida.
Oh, beautiful Florida. Have you lived there a long time?
Yeah, I was born and raised there. My dad taught at the University of Florida in South Florida, so I grew up as a college brat. And,
College brat.
Loved it.
Many great places in the United States to visit, and a lot of my listeners from my previous show, which was my travel podcast, will be listening in today. And what tips can you give them to come and visit your part of the world? What are some standout tourist attractions that are in your vicinity around there?
Definitely, the parks are fun for those of you who haven't visited Disney World or Universal. I actually had the pleasure of working at Universal and getting behind the scenes, and I was a tour guide for them, did private tours too and celebrity tours. So I got to meet a lot of celebrities, which was a lot of fun.
What's it like working at one of those parks? It must be pretty full on, is it? Because there's an enormous amount of tourists and everything coming all the time, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. So you get to meet a lot of interesting individuals from all over the world with all their stories. I experienced the same thing when I was traveling too, speaking of traveling, and really loved that. I traveled all through Europe, North Africa, Asia, South America, the islands. So I've traveled over 40 different countries and really loved getting exposure to the different cultures, the different mindsets. Just the different way people relate to each other. It's pretty amazing.
I know it's a difficult question to answer, but do you have a favorite place in the world that you've been to so far?
You know, one of the most magical places that I went to that I really enjoyed, as far as cities goes, was Lisboa, or Lisbon in English, in Portugal. Just gorgeously picturesque. The churches, the gardens, the ocean setting, the people are so friendly and kind, but gosh, there's just so many wonderful places. It's hard to pick one because they all have their differences, you know. Natural environments, Costa Rica or Thailand were definitely two of my favorites. Thailand has got some of the most loving, heart-centered, spiritual people I've ever met, just in the world, just opening their doors to you and giving you everything they've got. It's just their culture. That was very different coming from I, me, mine, America mentality.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, how financial capacity doesn't always end up in terms of relating to happiness. And you go to some of those places that you've mentioned. I've had a number of lovely trips to Lisbon as well in Portugal. And in fact, I ran the Lisbon half marathon one year and absolutely had a terrible time because I had a bad race. It was a freezing cold day. But I tell you what, we enjoyed the city afterwards. And that's what it's all about, because you get to meet the people and everything else. Now, a question that I ask many of my guests, Geoff, is I'd like you to dedicate the show to someone special in your life today. So who would you like to dedicate this podcast episode to today?
It's got to be my wife. She is responsible for me having the company that has launched us into a whole different phase of our lives. She's been the light of my life, you know. I look back and there are two major events in my life that really changed the trajectory and experience of my life in its entirety. And that was becoming vegan back in 1985. I had an amazing spiritual breakthrough that just really, you know, changed my life from a deep, dark depression, suicidal depression, into just full on enjoying life's experience and seizing the day. And then second is definitely meeting my wife, Vanessa. She has, I don't even know where to begin, but she's been such a critical part of me allowing myself to come to my truest self, if you understand what that means.
Yeah, absolutely. What a beautiful dedication. What's your wife's name?
Vanessa.
Vanessa. Okay, well, shout out to Vanessa today. And you two are going to be able to sit down and watch this episode together. I think that would be very appropriate after we release it. So thank you for that lovely dedication. And they do say that behind every successful man is a lady rolling her eyes. So maybe that is Vanessa as well. Now, you talked about a couple of important milestones in your life, and we're going to get into those a little bit deeper in the show because on the Sports Channel here, we talk to people about all sorts of things related to health and well-being, and you have a lot of experience in that space. You've got an amazing company that you've started now and you're doing to help people all across the world. But I thought we'd start off by going back to your actual sporting prowess, and I'm going to be talking specifically about your time as a swimmer. Tell us a little bit about what got you into swimming and how that all unfolded for you, Geoff.
Yeah, I was a water baby. We grew up on lakes. When I was growing up, my parents loved the water setting, so I always had a lake or a pond or something to swim in my whole life. So I mean, I could swim better than I could run or walk, to be honest. And both of my brothers went on to high school swimming, and so I just kind of followed in that footsteps. And of course, I wanted to be better than both of them, and ended up walking away with district records and setting records and that. I did go on a little bit further into Junior Olympics and AAU at high school and after high school to college. But at the college level and of course at the Olympic level, there was such a difference between me and and the next place. That's when I said, all right, I'm spending 5 hours training a day. I'm eating like, voraciously just to keep it on, and I'm losing my hair because of the pool. What am I doing this for again?
So were you one of those young boys that had parents that would get up at stupid hours in the morning and take them down to the local swimming pool for training?
Not at all. Oddly enough, my father was English professor at the university level, taught, was an existentialist. My mother was a child psychologist. So they were more the academia. They wanted me to excel in school, and that they were very concerned about. But in my upbringing, it was kind of easy for me. Actually, my problem I had with school is unchallenging. It was quite boring for me.
Right.
And I had trouble staying interested until I found science. And biological and natural sciences just fascinated me. One, because we know so little about it. Even our own brain chemistry back in 1985 when I was in college, we know a fraction of what we now know comparatively just in that 30 years. The understanding of the microbiome in our gut, the understanding of neurochemistry and how it plays in our whole physiology, these fields just exploded. So for me, the natural sciences, we have literally tens of millions of different plants on this planet, and we know this much about them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we have less than 1% is what the food we eat. I mean, we're barely scratching the surface. So for me, it was a wide open field of fascinating things that I could continue to discover all the time. So that's what kept me in the science field and led me to nutrition.
So there was no great ambition to become an Olympic swimmer and travel the world as a professional sports person?
When I met some of my heroes, a guy named Gaines, who was a breaststroker like I was, I walked up and shook his hand, and his hand literally just enveloped my hand, swallowed my hand. And I put my hand up to his, and it was like this. Yeah. I looked like an infant's hand next to him, and I'm like, "You got paddles?" He goes, "Yeah, I got size 14. I wear size 14 shoes, and I'm wearing a 9." I mean, he's got bigger literal paddles in his hands and feet, plus the longer torso, the hollower bone structure. And I realized quickly, okay, there's physiological differences that really set apart a Tracy Calkins, a Nader, a Phelps, one of these people who are just born with some naturally inherent ability. Hey, and I do not want to take away from any of the hard work, the nutrition, the dedication, what it takes to put in it. You got to have that as well. But there are advantages, physiological advantages that that do count, that do matter.
So did you think as a mere mortal that it was almost impossible for you to get to that higher echelon? Was that part of your kind of psyche at the time?
Oh, 100%. I knew for a fact that physiologically I was just not built to compete at that level at all, no matter how hard I tried, no matter how well I trained. I could shave, seconds off my time, but not to where the points where they were at.
Yeah, right.
I could have kept progressing. I loved it. I loved swimming. It was a whole body exercise. It kept me lean. I mean, I was eating 5,000 calories a day, and I was shredded.
Yeah. A lot of people love exercise for that very reason, but as we'll get on and talk about later, it's about the importance of what quality you put in your body too at times, and not just the amount of stuff you put in your life. What was your relationship like with that little black line that runs up and down the swimming pool? Did you have a good relationship with that black line?
I really got into it because, obviously when you're practicing, it's quantity. And so I'd spend an hour to 2 hours in the pool at a time, depending on the training regimen or what we were doing or preparing for meets or whatever. And it just became an active meditation for me. I later picked up, silent meditation or quiet meditation, sitting meditation. But this is where, in the pool, is where I really learned that zone that athletes get into, where you just dial in and it's you and you feel your physical limits and you just push past those limits. It's an exhilarating feeling to where your body is so numb, you almost don't even feel it. And it's just your mind telling your limbs to move the way you've programmed them to. It's a phenomenal feeling when you get to that level. And that's what I loved about competing. And that it was you against you in swimming, so much so. I mean, yes, you have to beat the other people to win tournaments and to medal and everything like that. But really, you're out there trying to do your best personal time. It's about making progress for you each time. So I loved that I could just dial in and not focus. As a matter of fact, every time my coach was saying, I saw you look right there, and that added a half second to your time. As soon as you looked over at that swimmer, that slowed you down a half second. And when I did a complete race with just total zoned in for the finish and total commitment to the finish, I always did my best time.
Yeah, amazing. I'm glad you talked about those many benefits of swimming, because it is such a fantastic sport, and also just a relaxation and pleasure activity, to have natural water flowing over your body. I think that the human body reacts so differently, doesn't it, when it's in that environment, weightless environment, when when we've got that flow going that you talk about. It's a really incredible, almost an out-of-body experience, if one could put it into that context. Were you somebody that used to breathe out through your nose?
Really depends. For breaststroke, you really do use your mouth, an open mouth for breaststroke.
Right.
And IM, depending on the stroke too, as well.
Yeah.
Definitely with freestyle, you're using a lot more nose, but really depends on the stroke. And it was interesting. Tracy Calkins had used a slight variation of breaststroke, kind of incorporating a little bit of a motion, that up and down motion of the dolphin or butterfly. And it was an interesting thing that they actually allowed for the first time in the Olympics, where she was just blowing away people. So there's adaptations. Some people say that about the suits, the full body suits that they're using, that it's becoming more technology, and it's like, do we really want to allow technology to be the reason that people are succeeding? Some interesting questions there in performance.
Yeah, we're going to have some people on the show talking about that specifically, because we get a lot of listeners that have dialed in to say, listen, performance enhancing devices are out there as well that are having a huge difference on world sport at the moment. We look at running shoes as an example. There's lots of controversy going around there that one particular brand has beaten all the others to get out there and get in front, and we're seeing incredible running times at the moment around the world as a result of that. So it's a very interesting topic, isn't it? And it's something that we can talk about in terms of what you're doing as well, because anything that enhances performance could be seen as performance enhancing when it comes to the legalities of sport. But let's go back to what you touched on earlier. You talked about a downward time of your life where things weren't so rosy, and you came across some challenges. What happened around that particular time for you, Geoff?
Yeah, tragically, I lost my father at 18, my brother around the same age, and my mother not too far after that. So we were very close-knit family. Getting raised in a high IQ family, the dynamic of conversation becomes something that you depend on because you can share ideas at a level that you can't with some other circles. And when that relationship or group of relationships, that structure fell apart and disappeared for me, it was scary. One, I didn't have a father figure. I was going from a whole life of being in school and social structure where everything was dictated for you. Your food was already made for you. Your everything you thought and did during the day. And now I had to go into the work world and design what did I want to do with life. And to have no parental figures there to really give me guidance was challenging. And I really went into a dark place after losing all of that so closely. I had 2 friends that I lost to suicide and drug overdose. It just seemed like, wow, I'm losing everything. And I feel like I didn't have control over life. Life was just being torn from me and I had no control whatsoever. And that sent me to a very dark place of using drugs for self-medication, smoking, drinking heavily, just partying, just anything to take away the dull pain of the depression that I was feeling on a daily basis. It led to me getting so bad that I tried twice to take my own life. I wanted out because I didn't see the value of continual life at that level of just everyday mental and emotional pain.
There's a lot of people around the world at the moment that are hurting, and after listening to you now, they'd be interested to know how you got yourself out of that. How did you switch your mindset to climb out of that dark hole?
Yeah, and so after the second failed attempt, I was like, okay, maybe there's some bigger energy, bigger purpose here at work. Maybe I'm supposed to be here for a reason, right? I'm like, okay, I really put it all in to make this work, and came out of a 3-day coma, and I'm like, I'm back again. Crap, All right, what is it? Somebody show me why or how to be happy. And I was sitting in a bar just drinking myself into oblivion once again, as I usually do on the weekends, and a woman walked into a bar just beamingly happy. And I'm like, what the hell? So I walked straight up to her and I point blank just said, how can I become happy like you? And she laughed. She was a little taken back. And she goes, I'm happy from the inside. And I'd love to show you how to do that. I'd like to take you to somebody. And I said, sure. I'm ready to exit here anyway. So what do I have to lose, right? So, I said, okay, take me to your leader, right? And, so I expected some guru or whatever. So we get to the guy's door, and he opens the door, and I go to walk in, and he stands in the doorway. And I'm like, well, that's a little bit rude, So I look up to see what that's about, and he just catches me right and looks right into my eyes. And he says, oh, you came here to prove me wrong. And I'm like, wow. He could see that just by looking at me. I've never felt so naked before in my life. And he said, okay, now I know where you're at. Come on in. Right. I was like, okay, all right, this guy's good. I'll play. Why not? Right. And so we just started talking about what I thought nothing. And he goes, oh, it's your father. And I'm like, ooh, that hit. And he goes, tell me about your father. And I said, he died through alcohol abuse at 48 and left me when I was 18. And he said, okay, do something for me. He goes, use this sentence and just repeat it back to me. I created a separation between my father and myself and tell me what you did. Well, I did that, and I would say something that he did, like he chose alcohol over me, or, he didn't see my love for him. He didn't see that I needed him to be there for me. And he's like, no, that's what he did. Tell me what you did to create that separation. And as he was backing me further into that and further into that, just the whole room disappeared. And I just was enveloped by these emotions of just rage and anger at him for abandoning me at a crucial time in my life. And when I had that breakthrough and the tears just fell, I was like, how can I be this furious at somebody who killed himself? Who couldn't even find happiness in his own life. And I saw in that moment empathy for him. I saw that he couldn't find a way to be happy either. And he was struggling in his own life for that. When I saw that, my heart just reopened back up. What I realized, I was so holding on to this anger for him because I felt it misplaced. I felt like I couldn't be angry at my own father because I loved him.
Yeah.
And I had no place to put all this anger, and it was turning inside, and I was turning that anger against myself, and I was killing myself. I was shutting down my own ability to love. I was not only not letting myself love my father, I was not letting myself love anybody around me. My relationships were all failed. My relationship with myself sucked. I was killing myself. I was not connected to anything at that point. And when I allowed the anger and the hurt and the sadness and the guilt for being angry at him all just release, my whole life changed. It was amazing. I felt so high, so floating, so buzzing. My worldview changed. At that moment, I saw I didn't come here to get something out of this world. That I am a whole human being now, and I have good things to give to this world. And that's where I'm going to find my joys. That's where I'm going to find my happiness. About what I have to offer as a human being. And I'm like, wow. So that day, I quit smoking, I quit drinking, I quit doing all drugs, and I quit eating all animals because I sat in meditation that night and I said, okay, I've been released from my suffering, from the suffering that controlled me to the point where it almost killed me. And I'm so thankful. I do not want to contribute to suffering of anybody else or anything else ever again. So I said, how can I pay that back? And in my meditation, it came to me, just stop harming animals, stop eating them. So I stopped right there that day, March 15th, 1985. I'll never forget it because my life just became something different. It was almost like stepping into a whole new life.
Wow, incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that because, one, I'm sure you've helped a lot of people out there today who are struggling, and your journey, and there's so much in that I'd like to contextualize in terms of the first thing was the incredible scene of you sitting in a bar and a lady walking in, and she was the right person. She was the person sent to help you, of course, and it's amazing when we get into that situation in life that our teacher or our guide appears, and we've just got to be open enough. And we're ready. Yeah, that's the important thing. We're ready, right? But I love the story, and I want to thank you because we're going to have lots of people on our show talking about products and businesses that they run today, and it's important for me that we hear the backstory behind these businesses and how people have changed their lives. And you are a fantastic example of a man who's changed his life completely around, and you're now living a life that's, I would say, 180 degrees opposite to what it was in every aspect, and now you've got this deep desire to help other people. So thank you for sharing that so much, Geoff, that part of your life journey. But let's go on and tell people what it is that evolved from that, because it's an exciting next step and leads us into talking about a clean machine as well.
Yeah, and for me, one of the things that I personally experienced, obviously my life shifted. I realized that most of my friends were depressive, and so I had to evolve out of that and finding a new set of friends, so to speak. I still love those friends, but I didn't want to participate in what they were participating, activities that nurtured that environment. So I had to do a lot of shifting. My workplace shifted, my, everything shifted, my relationships shifted. But one of the big things that I felt was my own physical health shifting so dramatically. I was like, wow, how do I pay this forward? And how do I keep improving on this? So I started really taking a look harder at my diet and how do I clean this up and how do I improve it and make it better? Because what I'm experiencing is not at all what most of the people that I talk to are experiencing. But they can. We're all human beings. We all have basically fundamentally the same physiology. But how do we do that? So I really started using the science that I did in college and using my understanding of nutrition and how I felt performance in high school through swimming. I combined those and my passions for understanding the natural world and seeing what those plants had to offer, how they could help people. And I said, okay, these are things that are not in mainstream society that I can bring to mainstream society so more people can be exposed to the amazing health benefits of some of these plants that are just in the books, that scientists write about, that are in studies, but they're not being used. They're not being consumed by the average person out there. And they're not getting the benefits of some of these incredible plants. And I was working for other companies at that time, and my wife is like, you keep developing multi-million-dollar selling products for other companies.
Somebody else.
And they're running with your ideas, making $30-40 million on them, and you get paid $1 for your patent on the amino acid profile of human muscle tissue. You're like, what are you doing? So I found this incredible plant, cactus flower, that modulates human hormones so effectively, better than anything in the entire plant kingdom by multiples. And I'm like, why is this not in the marketplace? When I looked at the research, the pharmaceutical companies that were doing the original research found it was far more effective than the pharmaceutical drugs on the market. So they were excited about it. Did 2 published human clinical trials show it reduced prostate health, increased testosterone, which was amazing. But then they looked at it, and for a pharmaceutical drug, you need to isolate one chemical out of it, and you can patent that chemical, and you can then make a lot of money for 7 years while that patent runs, because you have the exclusive on that chemical. But they found out there was probably about 5 different chemicals that were working synergistically in the whole plant. So they said, oh, you can't patent a plant, so unless it's genetically modified, which is why they're trying to make GMO versions of everything, so that they completely control the food, all the plants that do anything good. But you can't patent that. So they actually junked the study, which means they buried it in the archives and did not publish it, so no one actually would know about this.
Right.
And when I realized what was going on, I'm like, oh my God, prostate's one of the fastest growing cancer killers of men in the United States. And they found a natural plant that could be, a fraction of what the pharmaceutical drugs are. And they intentionally did not bring that information to the marketplace because of profit. Men's lives could have been saved for a decade, and it didn't happen because of profit motive. That just it got me fuming. And when I'm, explaining this to my wife, she's like, then do something about it. So I took it to the company I was working for, and they said, it doesn't seem like it good enough, because they were only concerned about profit. And I'm like, okay, God. And my wife said, stop bitching about it and do something about it. Let's form a company, and you get these products out so that it can help people, and you can be, bring these plants to market where it can be accessible to everyone. And I said, yes, let's do it. So scrapped together a little bit of savings to launch this. And that's where I launched the first product. And it was selected for best sports nutrition product of the year 3 months after it was launched.
Wow, fantastic. How long ago was that when you actually launched?
2013, that's when we formed Clean Machine.
Yep.
I named it Clean Machine because I really wanted to encourage people, especially in sports, to keep this amazing machine that we are born into as clean as possible, as natural as possible, as healthy as possible.
Mm.
And, I was in the field. I'm a natural bodybuilding champion, natural physique champion. And obviously there are people, even within the natural segment, that cheat, that use anabolic steroids. And, cheating's one thing. Competition was never about competition. It was me presenting my best package. So I didn't care if I won or lose, even though did take first place several times. But for me, it was more about, but what are you doing to your body?
Yeah.
What are you giving up by taking those drugs? And what example are you setting for the younger group that's coming up behind you? That mattered to me. That was important to me. And that's why I named my company Clean Machine, why we chose the flower for that is a symbol that is sacred geometry. Sacred geometry is perfect in nature, and all of nature is built to some degree on sacred geometry. So it indicates the foundation of the perfection of nature and science coming together. And to me, and in the heart of it being green, which is the plant kingdom, which is offering all these things. So there was a very intentional reason behind the creation and formation of Clean Machine. I really wanted to bring some of these plants, make them accessible, allow people to help improve not only their performance, but their overall health. And when I was at 24 Hour Fitness, senior buyer there for the company, largest gym and fitness channel in the world, they did an amazing little research and said, why are people not staying in the gym? And the number one reason they found was people aren't getting results fast enough. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, if we just change the nutritional element, if we give people really heightened, great nutrition, it can positively impact their outcomes. They can get results quicker. They can see results sooner, and that'll keep them inspired. If I can give people just a little glimpse, a little head up, a little step forward to say, wow, I really feel this. I'm really recovering better. It gets them excited and wants them to stay working out. And that's so important, is getting people to stay on track for fitness, because the more we can do that, the better we can enjoy that back end half of our life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Look, thanks so much for sharing that part as well, because the other thing that's come out of that is I love people who walk the talk. We have a lot of talkers in this world saying, I'm going to do this and I'm going to change the world and I'm going to help these people. But thanks to you and your wife, and I've got to include her in this story as well, because she kicked you up the backside and got you out there to do it. And as a result of that, Clean Machine was born, and your journey continued. I tell you what, I want to go back and have my sporting career all over again now, because I was one of those guys that used to eat as much junk food as I possibly could and tried to balance a sports career. And I've only just come clean in the last year or so. And I realize now what I could have done, what I could have achieved if I had that performance. And I know that I'm not an orphan out there in the world when it comes to this. So there's a lot of people that are listening today. You might need a catalyst to change your life. You've just heard two fantastic stories from Geoff about how to do that. One, first of all, getting off the drugs and alcohol and all those other vices that many of us take. And the second one is looking at how you can actually make a difference. And it starts with yourself, doesn't it, Geoff, as you've done. Now, since 2013, tell us about the journey with Clean Machine. What's been happening with the evolution of the company? In particular, some of the ingredients that you've come across that have been real showstoppers, haven't they?
Indeed. I feel really blessed that I'm a research junkie. My wife says, don't stay up too late reading studies. They're like candy for my brain. I just like new information. This is where that information is coming from. A lot of the research fields, I don't have $1 million to plunk down for a research study. If I did, I'd be doing it probably as much as I could spend. But I can go out and read and understand, thankfully for my college education, understand these research studies, understand the method of action, the biochemistry that's going on, the intracellular structures that are happening, the changes that are going on, the epigenetics, all of that down to the granular level. And it's fascinating once you enter into that world and know that you can make small changes, make a big impact in your life. And so I was looking at some of these plants that were having published research that were phenomenal, but we're not even close to becoming commercial. So I started working with some of these companies that were doing some of this incredible research and saying, let's work together to bring this out there. They saw my ability to be able to educate and communicate the benefits of these in a, an elegant way, in a deep and scientific way, but in a way that any layperson could understand, the benefits. And I feel like a translator, a little bit thanks to my psychology with my mother and the English literature of my father. I feel a good ability to be able to communicate some complex ideas in science and make them simple to understand, because our physiology and our natural biology are intuitive. They are so intuitive. It's like when you read a spiritual truth in a text, you go, I got it.
Yeah.
I know that. Yeah, it's clear, it's intuitive to us. Well, nature and biology is all like that too, because that's what our physiology is. We run on that.
Yeah.
One of my favorite stories is a researcher who was looking at genetics, and then he also had a PhD, Asian doctorate, PhD. He had a PhD also in music. So he looked and he's like, okay, well, the different notes on the DNA strands could be notes on the thing. So he assigned them, and he said, okay, well, what does that sound like? And we're like, wow, he was creating some amazing music based on DNA structure.
That's amazing.
And you almost intuitively knew, okay, that sounds like the DNA should sound like.
Yeah. The universe is interconnected, isn't it? Like, no doubt about it.
And then so he took a song, the Death March, dun 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 dun, and he says, okay, what would that translate? And he looked, and it almost perfectly matched a form of cancer. And I'm like, okay, all right. So on some level, on some vibratory level, did the guy who wrote that piece of music have that cancer in his body? To such a degree, on an intuitive vibratory level, did that music spring from that? You got to, these things that we can experience on that experiential level, we can also understand. That's what's so beautiful about the more deeply we dive into it. So I found this amazing plant called ahi flower, incredible plant, stone seed. So nobody had really marketed, because the stone's so hard it could actually break your teeth. But so nobody consumed it. The birds didn't consume it, but it allowed the plant, because it didn't have any natural enemies, because it's an adaptation of that rock hard shell, it to be evolved into one of the most efficient omega-3 producers of any plant in the world.
Wow.
And as they began to grow it and play with it, they found higher than any plant-based omega-3 in ALA and SDA, two of the omega-3s out there. So I was the first to bring that to market, and it won the NEXTY Award. You can see that behind me over right this side. There we go.
Yeah, I'll put you on full screen. There you go. Yeah, there's a couple of awards up there, I think, Geoff.
Indeed. So NEXTY Award is considered kind of like the Oscars for the entire supplement industry. Thousands of companies enter that yearly. It's given out at the largest trade show in the world for supplements. So really felt honored to be able to win that in 2016. And I found a plant that I was even more impressed with, if that's hard to say. And it's lentine. Lentine is the trade name for this weed called duckweed. It's a water plant. It grows right on the surface of the water. It's not an algae. It's a real flowering plant, but higher in protein than any plant known in the world. Higher in nutrient density than any plant. Higher than kale, spinach, spirulina, chlorella. Higher than moringa, which was considered the most nutrient-dense plant until the discovery. And nobody's heard of it. As a matter of fact, we were trying to kill this weed for the last 50 years until somebody took a look at it. first to bring that to market. We won the NEXTY Award again for the second time in 2018 for the best supplement out of all supplements in the United States.
Wow.
That's what I love doing is really finding these extraordinary plants. I feel like a messenger, so I hate almost taking credit for these extraordinary plants. They're the heroes, really. But I feel also honored to bring these to market where other companies won't.
My question is, while you're not busy on the red carpet getting all these awards, how do you find these particular plants?
Yeah, I worked with Parabel, the growers of Lentine, for over a year before they even broke ground on their aqua farm where they grow it in a controlled aqua farm. So, I love the research, and the research draws me to wanting the best. I want the best for my health. And when I find it, I want to share that with others. I mean, anything that you do, right, that really is a positive in your life, whether it's meeting somebody that you think the world of, or learning something that really changes your life, like a great book that really changes your life. Don't you want to share that with people?
Yeah.
Of course you do. That's just natural.
Yeah.
You want to share that with people so that they feel similar joys that you do. And it's just fun to see somebody's life light up. I had a person call me the other day who had gastric bypass surgery. So she can't get much nutrition in her, and she's really suffering from poor nutrition and not being able to pass things well. She tried this and she's like, oh my God, my health has turned around 180 degrees and I'm going to the bathroom every day again for the first time in 6 years.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah. So
extraordinary.
I hear these stories all the time about life-changing experiences when people step from a very bad nutrition to really top-of-the-line nutrition, and what a major impact. People's rosacea clearing up, people's skin issues, polycystic ovarian syndrome clearing up complete. I mean, just things I can't repeat on a professional basis because, our FDA doesn't allow me to talk about disease states. But they can tell me that they did.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah.
That makes me grateful to be able to bring these plants that can help people in ways that I can't even tell other people. I'm legally not allowed to tell other people.
So people should be running down to their local lakes and collecting all this duckweed to have on their cereal in the morning. How's that going to work?
Well, to be honest, it's been consumed for thousands of years by indigenous peoples all over the world. They knew it, and it's consumed by animals. But no, because Lentine doubles its size in like every 48 hours. So it's the fastest growing plant on the planet. And it does that because it can suck up nutrients so efficiently and turn them into amino acids and nutrients so effectively, better than any plant in the world. That's why it can grow so fast. But in that process, if the water body is polluted, it'll also pull up those pollutants too as well. So you definitely want to get it from a clean source, and ideally growing it in your own clean tank. And all of our Lentine is grown in completely controlled aqua tanks that is grown by the farmers so that the water supply is 100% controlled and no contaminants get into it. The good flip side is that you can take duckweed and put it on a polluted body of water, and within a matter of generations, it will clean the entire body of water and make the water potable again. So it's a beautiful savior on a pollution level for us. So cleaning our waters, cleaning our air, feeding us the most nutrient-dense food, and it's the lowest water crop, near zero carbon footprint to make. It's the most ecological. The World Health Organization called it the most total food nutrition, complete nutrition food on the planet. Even NASA is considering using it in their trip to Mars because it's so easily grown. It grows itself. It's self-spore, so you don't ever need to see it. Grows 365 days a year. It's just like, if you could design a perfect plant for food, this
is it. Now, for everybody who's listening and watching in today and they're going, wow, I love this story that Geoff just told me, A, about his life, and secondly, about his products. Where can they get their hands on your products today, Geoff?
Yes, I know you're out of down under, so we hope to get there soon, maybe next year. But for right now, we're available just in the United States. We're working on opening up Canada. So hopefully in early 2021, we'll be opening up Canada through Amazon. But yes, you can get us on Amazon or cleanmachineonline.com if you're living in the US. So yeah, we really want to, and that's my hope too, is to continue to be able to work with other distributors around the globe who are interested in the same, sharing the same vision, and work with us to try to make this more accessible, some of these amazing plants more accessible to more people.
Yeah,
That's my
so
goal.
there we go. So I'll be putting the links to Geoff's sites in the show notes today. So if you're out there and you're wanting to get this product in the United States today, and we're going to be in touch with Geoff on a regular basis on the show, so we'll be able to keep up to date with the global expansion of Clean Machine, because we're all excited to make as many people as healthy as we can. Any testimonials or interactions with sports people in particular that have been using your product, Geoff, that you can relay back to us?
Yeah, we have an incredible group of athletes. We actually sponsored and created the very first completely vegan bodybuilding championship in the world.
Oh,
So we had 50 bodybuilders, male and female, come from all over the world, I think 15 different countries, and participate. And it was amazing. The World Vegan Bodybuilding Championship, just an incredible event. So we look forward to doing that. We sponsor about a half dozen athletes. Bicycle Brendan, who broke the world record in riding from Maine to the end of Florida. We have Corinne Sutton, who is a 3-time pro bodybuilder, natural bodybuilder. Remember, these are completely natural, drug-free, and completely vegan. And just a whole host of wonderful athletes. Monk, who is teaches meditation, as well as teaching that, 3-time physique champion. Just an amazing group. We have Ella Magers, who is a yoga instructor, yet athlete as well. She's also been on the cover of Fitness magazine. Just an amazing group of athletes. I encourage people who haven't seen it yet to watch Game Changers, the movie, and see incredible host of plant-based athletes out there doing some amazing stuff.
So are we going to see a vegan Olympics soon? Is that on the radar, do you think?
That's the way things are going. Look, for recovery, there's no doubt that plants help with recovery. They're alkaline. They help the polyphenols and the phytonutrients, the chlorophyll, all help with the body. The fiber, when we're digested, the probiotics feed on fiber, basically, right? And then the probiotics break it down, fiber, into these short-chain fatty acids called butyrates. Butyrates are powerfully anti-inflammatory. And as a matter of fact, they play a very vital role in our adaptive immune response. There are 2 immune responses, like when we get COVID. You have innate immune response, which goes out and attacks the COVID and destroys it. And then but it causes a bunch of inflation, cytokines, called a cytokine storm. That can actually kill us if we don't reduce that inflammation with different factors. Vitamin D3 plays an important role in that. But also butyrates. Butyrates come and actually help lower that. Omega-3s are another thing that reduce this. And remember, these nutrients, fiber, which produces those butyrates, only comes from plants. Omega-3s really only are made by plants. A lot of people think fish oil, right? That's omega-3s. Well, the fish don't make omega-3s. That's a misunderstanding. Fish eat algae, which are the ones that make the omega-3s. They're just consumers of omega-3s. So plants are the makers of nutrients. Animals, including humans, we are consumers of nutrients. We don't make nutrients, we consume them. So all of the nutrients, whether it's essential amino acids, 100% of essential amino acids that make proteins are made by plants. Some made by bacteria, but we don't get that in our food supply, hopefully not too much. But all the essential fatty acids, all the essential amino acids, all the fiber, all the carbohydrates, all the sugars, all made by plants. Almost all the vitamins, except for D3 and B12, which is bacteria, D3 from the sun, all the rest of the micronutrients come from plants. So the big question is, okay, well, if plants are making all these, they're absorbing all the minerals from the soil, getting nutrients out of the air, creating even the oxygen we breathe. If they're the source for all of our nutrition, why are we taking that nutrition, that plant-created nutrition, feeding it to an animal,
Yeah.
and then killing the animal, and then taking its plant nutrition? Let's just leave the animals out of this equation. There's
Yeah.
no need to do that.
It's time to bypass the middleman.
Totally. I mean, it's not cost effective. Yeah, definitely. If you do that in the business world, you'll go bankrupt, right? It's not cost efficient. And the only reason animal products are cost efficient, especially here in the United States, is because our government subsidies
yeah.
the industry. So
we've seen so much disruption across the world in all sorts of different industries. It's time the food chains got disrupted in a positive way, and we started to see all of this. I'm interested to know, where do you see Clean Machine in 5 years from now? Are you planning on continuing your evolution with other plants as well and bringing those to market?
yeah, I am really excited to bring some really cool new plants in our pre-workout. Most of the pre-workouts in there on the marketplace are just glorified stimulants. They're just using caffeine, overdosing caffeine. And I'm like, okay, when you overdose caffeine like that, you may feel like you're ready to go in the gym, but what you're doing is elevating cortisol. What does cortisol do? It competes with testosterone, so your body can't build muscle as well. And then it causes storage of fat and breakdown of muscle tissue. So you're gaining fat, lowering your testosterone, and then storing body fat, tearing down muscle, and lowering your testosterone. Exactly the opposite of what you'd want to do with a pre-workout.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're using herbs that actually are 2 published human studies actually show boost testosterone levels, boost natural muscle gains, boost strength gains, boost this, and by significant quantities. So I'm really excited again to be one of the first to bring these plants to market. They're Ayurvedic herbs, interestingly, that were developed out of AI. So AI supercomputers were put to the task to say, okay, out of all the herbs, which ones have chemicals in it that do this, this, and this, and then which ones work together synergistically. So we're now starting to see some of the benefits of AI learning in the fields, because there's literally trillions of chemicals that are in plants that we've identified but don't know what they do, don't know their benefits of it, you know?
Brilliant.
And computer learning can do this and pull those out, and we are able to bring these plants to market and give people the benefits in ways that we've never experienced before.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It is very exciting, yeah. And I've just wanted to add that it's time that the human species caught up with some of this, because you know, I remember having another conversation with you, and we talked about there's so much information online that people get confused when it comes to healthy living and well-being. There's conflicting stories out there on studies that have been done. You've also got to look at who these studies are done by and who they're paid by, because that also misleads us down all sorts of different pathways that you mentioned earlier in the show about the commercialism of certain products that are, you know, studies have been created to promote and to market those products, of course. So it is a minefield. What would you say to somebody that's listening and watching in today who wants to start their journey on a healthy lifestyle? Where do they go to get the right information, Geoff?
And that's such a great and important question, is understand where you're getting the information from, like you said, and what their motivations are. You know, when I first brought Ahi flour to market, I was so excited about it. I brought it to one of the largest retailers in the United States and said, you know, here are the published human studies, 4 times more effective than anything you have on your shelf in the plant-based omega category. And he goes, yeah, that's a problem. And I'm like, he goes, what am I going to do when people find that out and the rest of the products aren't going to sell? And I'm like, you're kidding me, right?
Right, yeah.
And I'm like, you're going to withhold what you know. You've read the science. You know this is 4 times better than anything you have on your shelf, and you're not going to bring it in because it'll hurt sales. You're not there to benefit the public. You're there to benefit the corporation.
Yeah.
That's such a hard pill to swallow. When you have people who really care about nutrition, really want to help people, that I'm up against that. So, for me, it's a challenge that I have to do the legwork myself. I have to go out and educate. So I've done over 100 speaking engagements all across the country to try to get this information out. To be honest, I hate sales.
Right.
I know that sounds weird to say, but I would do this if I didn't have to sell, even more so because I could be unfettered. I didn't have to worry about, oh my God, are my bills paid, right?
Yeah.
Because I love what I do. I love helping other people. When we work so hard in our life to get to a point where we're supposed to retire and enjoy life, right? Get on a boat like you and travel,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But if we 80% of us are pre-diabetic or have high blood pressure, hypertension, heart attacks and stroke knocking on our back door. You can't enjoy life. The average person in America is on 12 prescriptions by the time they're my age. I'm zero. I'm in perfect health. My cholesterol is below normal. I even go to the doctors and they say, oh, your leukocytes are too low. And I'm like, what? Do you know what leukocytes are? Leukocytes are white blood cells, right? They come up when there is garbage in our bloodstream, basically. They're garbage men.
Yeah.
And the higher the white blood cells, that means there's more damage, more inflammation, more garbage, more injury going on.
Yeah.
And they say, yours is almost non-existent. And I'm like, great.
Great.
They're like, no, that's not healthy because we're used to seeing a high level of it, and that's normal. And I'm like, no, normal should not be unhealthy. That should not be the normal level. Healthy should be the normal level.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a message in that: stay away from doctors. Don't go and get tested. And you don't need to if you're healthy. You won't need to go to a doctor, right? That's the whole process.
Hey, look, there's some good doctors out there who are really doing the right thing. So I don't want to take that away from practitioners. There are true healers out there who are in the field of doctor, and I want to make sure that that's recognized. And look, if you break a bone, that's definitely the best reason to use a doctor. But if you come out of the doctor's office with 6 prescriptions in your hand, ask yourself, is this treating the cause? What caused my ill health? And exercise and diet and lifestyle, we know that 90 to 95% of disease states today are caused by those 3 factors.
Yeah.
And you can change those. The message is empowering. You can take back control. You don't have to go, okay, at 40, I'm going to start getting sick. At 50, I'm starting to take medications. At 60, I'm going to be in the hospital. At 70, I'm going to be dead. You don't have to do that. I expect to live well into my 100, fully healthy, fully active, enjoying life. And hopefully I'll have enough money to actually enjoy that back end of my life.
Well, I'll tell you what, Geoff, we think the same way here at the Global Sports Channel. So we'll have you on for the next 40 or 50 years on our show, and we'll keep telling everybody this story. Listen, we've rushed through our time today. It's been fantastic. But the good news is, folks, if you're out there, Geoff is going to be a regular contributor here on the Global Sports Channel. We're going to be engaging in all sorts of interesting ways. So you'll be able to come back and listen again. I'm going to put all Geoff's details in the show notes today so you can get in touch with him if you want to find out more about Clean Machine. Maybe you want to be a distributor somewhere in the world. Maybe you just want to try the products. Maybe you want to find out some more about it. You can contact Geoff Palmer. Geoff, thank you very much for being on the Global Sports Channel today, and I can't wait for you to come back and grace us with your amazing presence again sometime in the future.
Pleasure to have you, and I feel so simpatico with you. I think we're on the same pathway, so it's pleasurable to share the path with you, my friend.
Brilliant. Thank you. That was Geoff Palmer, everyone, talking to me from beautiful Florida in the United States. And what an amazing story. I hope you were inspired and motivated by Geoff's incredible story from being addicted to drugs and alcohol and also having 2 suicidal attempts to now turning his life around and creating this amazing business and developing these products from plant-based ingredients to help people change their lives around and live a healthy lifestyle. It's been a phenomenal story listening to Geoff today. If you haven't checked us out yet on the Global Sports Channel, head on over to our website if you haven't seen it at globalsportschannel.com. If you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel, hit the bell notification, and every time we drop a video you will be notified. Also, we are on social media on all the normal platforms, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. follow us there. And on Instagram in particular, send us your sports photos and we'll give you credit for it and share it with our global audience. So that's a way that you can get engaged with us here at the Global Sports Channel. Well, until next time, my name is Mark Philpott. It's been great being with you all again today, and I look forward to being back with you all again very soon here at the Global Sports Channel. Until then, stay safe, stay well, and stay happy.